This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, ho there. It's Jeff Canadien welcoming you to another Sports Catastrophe on this day. Now, rarely I do 2 or more events in one video, but remember thinking to myself when I did my list and said, well, what days do I know are famous events from? Like, do I remember famous events and all that? Like February 7th, I remembered it or 6th. I remembered about Daryl Sittler. Well, yeah, it was the 7th. I remembered about Daryl Sittler. And I remembered February 6th about the Munich air disaster for Manchester United. Mostly because Facebook on this day I commented on it. But then again, Facebook on this day is a good thing that basically you remember, you type a status for a certain day. And basically it says 6 years ago, 5 years ago, and then you see what decisions you've made and didn't make. So, the biggest thing for me when I was doing this was the fact that, okay, it's going to be one main moment. However, March 11th is a day of sadness for Montreal Canadiens fans. Not one, not two, but 3 times over. We start in 1937 as Howie Morenz had his funeral at the Montreal Forum. Howie Morenz was an iconic player. He was one of the first hockey superstars in the modern game. He was born in 1902 and died in 1937, so he was 34-ish when he died. When he started playing for the Habs in the 1920s, he was basically a marketable star. Montreal is basically the hockey capital of the world, although people in Toronto would disagree. Morenz would play for the Montreal Canadiens in 2 stints, and in between he would play for the Blackhawks and the Rangers. Before joining the NHL, Morenz excelled in the OHA, the juniors, and had a chance to play for the Memorial Cup. In the NHL, he was one of the most dominant players ever and set several records. A strong skater, he was the Stratford Streak because of his speed and where he was from. Well, he's from Mitchell, but whatever. He played 14 seasons, 3 Stanley Cup champions. All that. So, yeah. It's pretty good. In his NHL career, he was 10 times in the top 10 scoring leaders. For 7 straight seasons, he was the Canadiens' point leader. He won the Hart Trophy 3 times. He led the league twice in points scored, where you would get Art Ross trophies, technically. Unfortunately, because of complication from a broken leg, he died. His Habs would retire his number 7, his famous number 7, and that would be the first time an NHL team had done that. And Morenz was one of the original inductees in the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1945. So basically, he looked good and all that. He had a wife and he had 3 children, Howard Jr., Donald, and Marlene. Marlene Morenz would marry Bernie Jeffron, who was a Hab and Ranger star great from 50 to 68. Morenz's grandson Danny Jeffron played for the Habs in 79-80 under his father Bernie, who would be coach of the 79-80 Habs. And Danny's son Blake played for the University of Wisconsin, won the Hobey Baker for NCAA Player of the Year, and actually was the first 4th-generation NHL player when he made his debut with the Predators in 2011. And then he was traded to Montreal in 2012, meaning that all 4 generations of the Morenz Jeffron family played for the Canadiens organization. Stratford had a chance to win the 1921 Memorial Cup, but Winnipeg got them. So basically, Morenz did all that. So anyway, yeah. Morenz was supposed to be with Montreal at first, but he didn't feel like it. And basically, people in Stratford were wanting him to stay, and basically he yielded to the pressure. And he actually included the check back to Montreal. All that. Leo Durand, who was the Montreal owner, told Morenz to come to Montreal and talk in person. Durant basically said that Morenz should be in Montreal and that his career might be over and all that. But he actually got Morenz to talk to some of the Montreal players, and they grew on him, and he went to Montreal. Basically, he was a superstar and all that. As I said, 3 Stanley Cups. I don't want to get too much into his career because, there's other things. So basically, Montreal, his thing was in decline and all that. Morenz said he would only play for the Habs. He would never want to be traded. And he was concerned about his future on the team in the summer of 34. However, by October, he was traded to Chicago alongside Lauren Chabot and Marty Berg for Leroy Goldsworthy and Lionel Conacher, who would become one of the best Canadian athletes in the first half of the 20th century, or between 1900 and 1950, and also Roger Jenkins. I think Lauren Chabot played for the Habs, the Maroons in 1935 or something, because he played for the Blackhawks. But for how long? Oh, he only played for the Blackhawks for that one season, and then got traded to the Maroons. Okay, because I remember Lauren Chabot being in the Stanley Cup Finals as a member of the Maroons. Anyway, in his first season with the Blackhawks, he would play all 48 games with the team. That was the norm of the season, and scored 34 points. He basically didn't feel comfortable in Chicago, and then Morenz was traded January 1936 to the Rangers for a forward by the name of Glenn Bergson. He only had 6 points in 19 games for the Rangers. Cecil Hart became the coach of the Habs, but he had only one wish, that the Habs bring Morenz back. And the Habs agreed. They purchased his contract from the Rangers, and he was getting better. He would actually not do that badly. Unfortunately, though, January 1937 was not good for him. In a game between the Hawks and the Habs, Morenz went after a puck in the Chicago end and being chased by Earl Seabird. Morenz lost his balance and fell to the ice and crashed into the boards and caught his left skate into the wooden siding of the boards. Boards used to be out of wooden in those days. Seabird unfortunately couldn't stop and landed on him with full force and snapped Morenz's left leg. His left leg was fractured in 4 places. Figured that Morenz would never play in that season. Basically, he got a lot of good wild cards and all that. And people brought them drinks. That team remarked that the whiskey was on the dresser and the beer was under the bed. Unfortunately, Morenz couldn't move off his bed. He would read newspapers to stay up to date with the Habs and all that. Morenz basically became depressed once the Habs were starting to fall flat without him. And he had a nervous breakdown. All that. Morenz basically complained of chest pains March 8th. And he tried to get out of bed to use the washroom, but collapsed on the floor and died of a coronary embolism based on the fact he had blood clots in his damaged leg that got to his arteries, his heart. Sadly, though, he died at the age of 34 minutes before his wife and coach could come to the hospital. So anyway, 3 days later, there would be a funeral on March 11, 1937, at the Montreal Forum. Fans were allowed to file past the casket laid at center ice, and 50,000 people paid their respects. It was amazing and all that. The entire service was broadcast on the radio, and he was buried in Mount Royal Cemetery in Montreal. The legacy was huge. Montreal mourned the death of Morenz for months and retired his number 7, November 1937, becoming the first NHL team to do such thing. And they did have a benefit All-Star game. A team of NHL All-Stars would play the Canadian, a team comprised of the Canadiens and Maroons, the 2 Montreal squads. All that. Basically, he looked good and all that. He brought excitement to the NHL. There's a rumor that Morenz's great play in the 1924 Stanley Cup Final between Montreal and Calgary, and before Mr. doubter can come, and I doubt he'll come on Thursday, and he won't come on Thursday, thank goodness for that, is that the Stanley Cup at that time was more of a challenge cup in a sense. The NHL champions would face the winner of the Western Canadian Hockey League, the Western Canadian League would face the winner of the Pacific Hockey Association, and the winner of that matchup would face the NHL champion for the title. That's why you'll see the 1925 Stanley Cup have the name of Victoria in British Columbia. Wow. Anyway, Charles Adams was impressed with Morentz's play in the 24th Stanley Cup final and wanted Boston to have an NHL city. And that was the first NHL franchise in the United States. So this was amazing and all that. So he won the Stanley Cup 3 times, 24, 30, 31. Top scorer in 28 and 31. 3 Hart trophies, 28, 31, 32. And did good on the first team. So, from Howie Morenz, we go straight into something that links it. Remember when I said about the Montreal Forum? Hosting this funeral in 1937? Well, almost 6 decades later, they hosted another funeral of some sort. The last game ever played at the Forum. The Montreal Forum was built in 1924, not for the Montreal Canadiens, as most people think, but basically the Montreal Maroons. So the Montreal Maroons, Montreal's English team, because Canadians were the French Canadian team, basically in 1924, for 2 years the Maroons would play at the Forum without being interrupted by Montreal. But Montreal wanted to leave. What was it? I forgot the name. Not Jubilee Rink. I think it was like Westmount Arena or something. I don't know where, but Montreal moved in 1926. And so basically the Habs moved in, and the Maroons left in 1938 because their franchise folded. So the Habs stayed there from 1926 to 1996. 7 decades. That's amazing. In fact, no original 6 arena, and we're talking the old Madison Square Garden, not the new one, because the new Madison Square Garden was built in 1968. Boston Garden, Chicago Stadium, Detroit Olympia, and Toronto Maple Leaf Gardens. None of them lasted 7 decades hosting an NHL team. You say the Leafs, but that would have been until 2001, and we all know the Leafs left Maple Leaf Gardens in 1999. It is actually a multiplex cinema. All that. It's located at the northeast corner of Atwater and St. Catherine West. It's a historically significant 24 Stanley Cup championships, 22 of the Habs and 2 of the Maroons. It was also home to junior hockey and inline hockey. So the Forum basically was made as a move. And all that. The Forum had 2 renovations. At first, when it first opened, it was 9,300 people could sit. The Forum closed and had capacity for over 17,000. By the time of the 68 renovations, they had a center-hanging digital score clock, which was huge and all that. In 1985, they had a new score clock that had a colored matrix board and all that. Montreal used a high-pitched siren to signal the end of it game's period. The Bell Center would do that too. And Boston would do the low-pitched siren. So the Forum was held a lot of hockey games. They would also host the Quebec Senior Hockey League, basically the league that John Belleville was pilfered from. Belleville played for the Habs for a few tryouts, but decided to play in the senior leagues because Quebec pays better. So the Habs basically swiped everything and actually bought the Quebec Senior Hockey League. Holy one. I know. So anyway, the Montreal Forum hosted Memorial Cup games in 1950, 68, 69, 70, 73, and 76. But the Montreal Junior Canadiens winning the Memorial Cup on home ice in 1970. The Forum was home to Game 1 of the Summit Series between Team Canada and the USSR. Of course, Russia won that game 7-3 after Canada had an easy 2-0 lead. In 1980, the NHL entry draft, the one that Montreal stupidly passed over Dennis Savard for Doug Wickenheiser in the first overall pick they picked up from Colorado, smartly realizing Colorado would be the worst team in the NHL and would have to give up the pick to Montreal. It was the first time an NHL arena hosted the entry draft. The Forum would host many Stanley Cup finals and all that. Only 2 visiting teams have ever won the Stanley Cup on Forum ice. The Rangers in 1928 taking down the Bruins, and the Calgary Flames in 1989 against the Canadiens, Lanny McDonald's last game, as I mentioned a few days earlier. Montreal would say farewell to the Forum on March 11, 1996, beating the Dallas Stars 4-1. The game was on TSN and ESPN2. But the pathetic thing was that why was it not on a Saturday night like Maple Leaf Gardens? Like, pathetic. Why would they have it on a Monday? It just did not make sense. I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel. Guy Carbonneau, who captained the Habs for 5 years, actually took the ceremonial opening face-off. He was on the other side of things. Many hockey greats were presented to the crowd, but the greatest ovation was for Maurice Rocket Richard, an 8-minute ovation and all that. Although some people said it's up to 16 minutes. It's like, how could you have a 16-minute ovation? And then they had the symbolic torch, because in the Montreal dressing room, they had the line, "To you from failing hands, we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high." As many former Canadian captains who were there that day would pass the torch, first by Emile Bouchard, to Jean Beliveau, then to Yvan Cournoyer, to Andre Pocket Rocket Richard, to Serge Savard, to Bob Gainey, and then even to Guy Carbonneau, and then to Pierre Turgeon. Basically, the torch would be carried down a parade route from the old Forum to the Molson Center, aka the Bell Center. And that's when the Habs played the Rangers. The Forum hosted many wrestling matches and also hosted other sports: indoor soccer, boxing, lacrosse, and tennis. The best boxing match was 1958 as Archie Moore, one of the best world middleweights ever, took on Yvan Darrell. And Darrell had Moore on the ropes, but sadly Darrell could not finish the fight. The Forum was hosting some events in part of the 76 Summer Olympics. Gymnastics, handball, the ball that you have this big ball, and it's like hockey, but you throw a ball into the net. Basketball, volleyball, and boxing. The gymnastics event was when Nadia Comaneci got her first perfect 10, but the scoreboard showed 1.00, which was weird. But because nobody expected a perfect 10, that's how they wrote it. But they knew it was a 10. As we said, the Forum hosted the funeral for Howie Morenz. The Beatles performed there September 1964. There were a lot of concerts and all that. In fact, Queen recorded their concert film, "We Will Rock You," at the Forum, which was amazing. The Jacksons performed there. Bob Marley did. Journey, Rush, Hall & Oates did it. Madonna, David Bowie, Billy Graham held a lot of things. So yeah, the seating capacity was 9,300 up to 16,259. It's now home to a Cineplex and all that, but they still have lots of things to do with the Habs and all that. And it was declared a National Historical Site, which was great. So basically, that's 2 down. However, March 11th would also be remembered for a sad moment. Remember when I talked about Boom Boom Geoffrion, and he married Howie Morenz's daughter Marlene? Well, here's his part of it. Here. So Boom Boom Geoffrion was born in 1931 and died March 11th, 2006. You can kind of guess where I'm going for this, but here's stuff on him. So Boom Boom was known for a slap shot. Basically, he was one of the first NHLers to perfect the slap shot. I know they say Bobby Hall, but Boom Boom beat him to it. He was the second NHLer to score 50 goals in a season. The first being his man, Rocket Richard. Basically, he played left wing on Montreal's top line with Richard and Jean Beliveau. got the Habs to 6 Stanley Cup championships, and was based. And at times he was right wing too. Geoffrion had a hard time convincing the NHL of his talents because Rocket Richard, John Belleville, his teammates, would outrank him. Bobby Hull and Gordie Howe were very good. The problem was that Geoffrion had issues with the city of Montreal. As we all know about the Richard riot, which I will get to next week because obviously I don't want to get too far into it. So the Richard riot, I'll talk about it too, but basically with Richard being suspended for the rest of the year by Clarence Campbell, Geoffrion somehow ended up winning the league scoring title, and the fans would not be appreciative of it, even though Geoffrion is a fellow Quebecer. It was not good. But unfortunately, Montreal fans would not allow him to forget the fact that he beat Rocket Richard in the scoring race when Richard was suspended. Montreal, he wanted to leave Montreal, but thanks to Belleville and even Rocket Richard, he didn't. So anyway, he had bad temper and all that. One of the worst things he did with his temper was take a two-handed swing to the left side of Ranger Ron Murphy's face, giving a broken jaw and concussion. Geoffrion was suspended for the remaining matches between the two teams in that campaign. That's kind of weird. Anyway, Geoffrion actually broke his nose 6 times and received over 400 stitches. He actually had a training accident in 1958 and almost died, but surgery helped him. Despite advice from his athletes to stop playing, Geoffrion was back 6 weeks later to take part in the 58 Stanley Cup final, which the Habs won. Geoffrion decided to retire in 1964 and become head coach of the American Hockey League's Quebec team. But the Rangers managed to finagle him into a contract 2 years later. People said that the reason why Geoffrion retired was because Belleville was the captain and all that, and Geoffrion was not happy with that decision. He said if he was captain, he would have been a good guy. Basically, he retired as player and became head coach of the Rangers and resigned after only 43 games due to ulcers in his stomach. Not good. In 1972, he basically became the first head coach of the Atlanta Flames, the new expansion team, and all that. Weird how you have hockey in Georgia and all that, and Geoffrion with his French Canadian accent, and Georgia with their accents. So anyway, he had 2.5 seasons with them as head coach, getting them to the 74 playoffs where they got beaten handily by the Flyers. Sadly, though, health issues ruined. He moved to the broadcast booth and became the color commentator, which was weird to see. So in 1979, he got his dream. He got to coach the Habs after the inner turmoil of Scotty Bowman leaving the team, even though he won a Stanley Cup with them in 79, because he was upset he wasn't the GM of the team, as Irving Gridman, who was basically Sam Pollock's kiss ass, if you will, came by. Or lackey. So he got to be the coach. And Montreal had a little bit of struggling. And no, wait a minute. No, Montreal didn't struggle in 79-80. I think they were doing quite well, and then Geoffrion had to go because of stomach problems. But a lot of people said that, it was something else. There's got to be something about it, because I don't buy this for a moment. It's like, something just doesn't seem right. So, yeah. So they had a lot of off-season. Oh, he was 15-9-6, and then Geoffrion stepped down as head coach because of ulcers. Well, I guess being head coach of the Montreal Canadiens can give you ulcers, if you will. So, yeah. So, basically, yeah, he decided to retire. But he would actually end up being in many TV commercials for Miller Lite beer because Miller Lite decided to put their beer in a better light by having retired athletes turn spokesmen. That include Billy Martyr and Bob Uecker. Nice. So, of course, Bernie Cheffron's widow is the daughter of hockey legend Holly Moritz. And I think she's still living, if memory serves me right. She was born in 1934, I know that. So she's like, what, 87? Yeah, wow. Well, Marlene is the daughter of Holly Moritz and the granddaughter of the sister of the wife of Billy Coutu. Danny Geoffrion played 5 years in professional hockey, which included stops in Quebec with WHA, and then went to Montreal, and then went to the Winnipeg Jets. And Boom Boom's grandson Blake was a player for Nashville and Montreal and all that. So yeah, I don't think Danny did so well. I know Danny only played 32 games for the Habs and didn't really do too well. Montreal decided on October 15, 2005 to retire his number 5. On March 11, 2006. Why they didn't pick a date with the number 5 in it, I don't know. Unfortunately, Geoffrion was diagnosed with stomach cancer after a surgical procedure uncovered it on March the 8th. They needed to remove the tumor, but the cancer had spread. And sadly, though, Geoffrion died 3 days later, March 11th. See what I told you about Montreal being jinxed 3 times with sadness and all that? During his remarks at the pre-game retirement ceremony, Geoffrion's son Bob recounted how his parents had once gone to a boxing match at the Montreal Forum, and Geoffrion told his wife Marlene that his own number would someday hang from the rafters beside that of her father, who was Howie Morenz. See, everything gets linked. Fulfilling that prophecy, and for recognition of the special link between the Morenz and Geoffrion families, the 2 numbers were raised side by side. Morenz's banner was actually lowered halfway between the rafters and the ice to catch up with Geoffrion's number 5 going up, and then basically they both were raised together. So yeah, he won the Calder in 52. He played in many All-Star games, won 2 Art Ross trophies, 55 and 61, 6 times Stanley Cup champ, won the Hart Trophy in 61, and was the first part of the first All-Star team. His number 5 was retired March 11, 2006. Sadly, though, he would die on that day. Now, the 5 and the 7 are going to probably be up there side by side, not just because of the Morenz Geoffrion link, but because what good Montreal Canadian has worn number 6? Honestly. So anyway, yeah. In his NHL career, Boom Boom had 393 goals, 822 points in 883 career games, 118 points in the playoffs. His coach record, 68-69 with the Rangers. He did okay, but he had to resign due to health problems. The Rangers were 3rd in the division. Atlanta, 1 playoff appearance for them, but he got fired because of health problems. And, you know, he helped Montreal do decently in the 1980 season, but sadly he had health problems. So, yeah, hard to believe. And hard to believe that 3 major events in Montreal happened on the same day, March 11th. It's kind of freaky. And, you know, it's the 25th anniversary of the closure of the Forum. What a weird way to go. So, yeah, everything links to something. It's a 6 degrees of bacon, even though I hate Kevin Bacon. Except for Footloose, I can't stand that guy once and for all. Anyway, I know that the great Leo McGuire would probably have a lot more to say about this whole March 11th thing. But basically, I did not cheat this time. I did not use any of his references and all that. I basically tried to remember everything. Yes, I used Wikipedia and all that because there's some stuff there that I would not get and all that, and I would have to make connections. But yeah, I knew March 11th was a special day. I mean, I'm not stupid, you know. Anyway, thanks for watching. Ado.